What is XSS, cross-site scripting attack? This is a very common type of security attack and therefore it's very important to know. Suppose you have a UI with an input field and with a submit button like this. Now, as a developer, you are expecting that users will only put the text comments inside it, right? But then a hacker user comes and writes the full JavaScript code like this inside your input field. It's not so difficult, right? And they press submit. As you can see, this is a malicious script, meaning there is a chance that your application will read this as a text and execute it as a program inside your application, and which can then actually break your application, right? So this is the kind of a hacking attack and we call it cross-site scripting attack. Okay, and here is a very easy to understand definition. Cross-site scripting is a security attack that occurs when a user or hacker inserts some malicious script code in the input fields to steal or manipulate the content of your application. Okay, and in the upcoming question I will show you how to prevent this attack. How to prevent XSS attacks and what is sanitize HTML module? Alright, as you can see, the answer is hidden in the question itself. So in Node.js, we can use the sanitize HTML module to prevent this XSS attack. Before that, the first thing is we should not allow the user to enter anything suspicious in the UI itself. That is the first level check we have to do, because user input must be validated in the UI applications and malicious script should not be allowed, right? But yes, sometimes the UI team is different, so we cannot control them. Therefore, on the REST API side, we should use something to sanitize the input. Sanitize means to remove the harmful text or script from the actual content. Let me show you the code here. First, we will install this sanitize HTML module and import it like this. Then suppose this is the malicious input script coming from the UI side or the front request. Then we can sanitize this input by passing the user input as the parameter inside this sanitize HTML function. And then if you log this sanitize input, then in the output it will be something like this. See, the script tags, the alert box, all is removed and only this happy is left after the sanitization. Sanitization, you know, right? It's like cleaning the things. Okay, great. Removing the germs, right? Sanitization means, right? Great. That's how we can prevent XSS attacks by sanitizing the input. And the same thing is written here, which will help you basically later in revision from the book. What is SQL injection attack? In SQL injection attack, if you have a web page with the input field like this, then the user can write some SQL script inside this input field and press submit. Now your application might consider this as a valid SQL script and can execute it. Okay, so something similar to cross-site scripting attack, but this time the user will write the SQL query inside your input button. And you can see how dangerous this SQL query is. It can delete all your customer table data, right? So this type of attack is called SQL injection attack. And yes, the same is written here in the definition, which can help you in the revision. Okay, and in the upcoming question I will tell you how to prevent this SQL injections. How do you prevent SQL injection attacks in Node? The short answer is never execute the input received directly in the database. Okay, never execute the query directly. Always use a parameterized query. Let me explain and show you the code. Suppose in your Node application like this, we are using a MySQL database, okay? and then here is your user input received from the UI. Now, as I said, never execute this input directly on the database, because then it will be a dynamic query, and never use dynamic queries. Okay, first prepare the SQL statement like this, and then execute the query with the user ID as a parameter. Okay, now now what will happen, the above question mark will be replaced by this user ID. And if the user ID is some malicious SQL script, then an error will be generated, which you can throw and you can log for your information, but your database will not have any impact. Okay, and it will be safe from the SQL injection attacks. Okay, so great, that's how we can prevent SQL injection attacks. And here are the 2 points which we can remember. To prevent SQL injection, first thing, use parameterized queries with the prepared statements. And second important thing, never use the dynamic queries. Dynamic queries means directly the queries which are generating by itself and directly running on your database. Okay, that's it. How can you improve the performance of a node application? This is a very good question, and I will share 7 performance improvement techniques here. They are very simple to understand and they play a very important role in performance improvement. Of course, this question is going to be theoretical, but I will step by step I will make you understand. Okay, first performance technique is optimizing database queries. Yes, whatever database you are using, there you have to use proper indexes and then use proper queries and choose appropriate database models. Okay, indexes are very important here. First thing, okay, this will ensure the efficient data retrieval and manipulation from the database in a very fast manner, right? It's very important. Second performance improvement technique is to use asynchronous operation wherever possible in your application. Yes, asynchronous operations like async await, promises, they will avoid blocker operations, okay, and prevent delay. See, avoid synchronous operation. Synchronous operation means they block the further executions, and I covered it separately, but I hope you know what is the meaning of blocking the functions and not blocking. Okay, the third technique is using caching mechanism, for example, in-memory caching, database query caching, HTTP caching for basically for faster retrieval of frequently accessed data. So if you think the users are accessing some data frequently and again, then use caching for that data. Okay, fourth technique is to implement load balancing. Load balancing means if millions and millions of requests are coming to your Node API server for the data, then distribute those millions incoming request across the multiple instances of the application. Okay, so create multiple instances, and if required, multiple servers also for the same application you can create. Okay, so load balancing will divide the load, and if hundreds requests are there, then 20 will go to one instance or one server, 20 will go to another one server. So distributing the workload in multiple servers, and it will make the request response time faster. Okay, and to implement load balancing, you can use reverse proxy server techniques like Nginx. Okay, so I will not go in detail, that's a very big topic separately, but this is a performance improvement technique. Next technique is the compression technique, basically to shrink the size of the response. Okay, so whatever response you are sending back from the API to the client, this compression technique will shrink the size of the response. And then shrinking means making the size less, and if the size less, then the faster is the response time, right? The network transfer will be faster. And yes, you can do this compression technique by using a middleware called compression. Okay, and that will compress your response, and then your response will move faster in the network. All right, see, implementing all these technique is a bit of work, like when you are implementing them in your project, and it will take time. But now you know that what things you have to explore for performance improvement and where to start, and most importantly, what is the answer of this question, how to answer it to the interviewer, right? Great. Sixth technique is use streaming for input output operations. See, streaming means you can read and write the large files of data by first breaking them in a smaller chunks. That is streaming. Okay. So rather than reading a large chunk, reading in a smaller chunk will basically reduce the memory usage, and eventually it will improve the performance. Okay. Finally, the last technique is to monitor the profile performance. So monitoring profile performance means you can use the tools like New Relic is a tool, and by these tools you can continuously track the performance of your application. For example, it will show that okay, at some point of time your request and response was taking that time. So these tools will record the performance problems, and then you can optimize the application by solving those problems. Clear? Great. I think there are many more other technique also, but covering all of them will be very time consuming. And if you can explain 4 to 5 techniques out of this 7, then I think it's a very good answer in the interviews. Okay, that's it. And yes, whatever I have explained about each and every point is written here in very simple terms. This can help you in the last minute quick revision just before the interviews. How can you deploy a Node application? If you have a Node application like this, then first and optional. So I'm telling you the steps. So first and optionally, you can also use the deployment tools for your application like Docker and Kubernetes. So let me give you a very high level idea of this Docker. So Docker is like a ship container which will basically transport and deploy your application in the deployment platform like this: AWS, Google Cloud, Azure cloud-based solution, or any self-hosted solution. Okay, sell your own servers, application servers, this last option. Okay, so there are many benefits of using this Docker, like for example, it can easily deploy on multiple environments of your application to environments like dev environment, QA environment. So on one single click it is will deploy as per your requirement. Okay, and this Docker is very configurable also. So in short, I will say using Docker and Kubernetes will simplify the deployment of multiple applications also. Okay, all right, Docker and Kubernetes are like very separate and big topics. We are not going in detail there, but I hope you get the idea. And as I said, these deployment tools are optional only. You can also directly use the AWS and Azure deployment tools. There are deployment tools inside these clouds also, okay, or something else also. Separate tools are also there. This is up to you actually. Great. That is the short answer of the question how to deploy a Node application.